Papers now on the programme, and Lauren Bestek is joining us to take a look through the day's major headlines. We're going to start with yesterday's Democratic primary in the US. It's been extensively commented on, including in the French press, hasn't it?
That's right, and even makes the front page of French daily Libération, which shows us four of the candidates with the headline, "Who can oust Donald Trump? Who can beat Donald Trump?" That's the real question for this newspaper. Now, according to Libération, it was a crucial debate just weeks before a key Iowa caucuses, yet no clear favorite emerged from this exchange, which largely centered around questions of foreign policy, but also around the clash between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, look, quite a lot has been said, hasn't it, about this clash between the two progressive candidates. And what are the papers in the US saying about it then?
Well, it's certainly been one of the main talking points of the debate. Basically, Elizabeth Warren said Bernie Sanders told her in 2018 he didn't believe a woman could be elected president of the U.S., something which Sanders has denied. Now, according to the Washington Post, this whole debate is a fight in which both Sanders and Warren came out as losers. The author argues this came across as a mom and dad fight. And when mom and dad are fighting, children usually run to the other room. He concludes that considering how close the two candidates are on many issues, the only way either can prevail in the primary is to convince the other supporters to back him or her, and that's a task that's now been made a lot harder for both.
And of course, that heated exchange, I mean, it did at least raise, didn't it, that important question of sexism in politics. How's that been tackled by the press?
Well, it's a lot has been written about this question and this concept of eligibility, which you may be familiar with if you followed Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Now, the New York Times, in an editorial, is posing the question, are Americans ready to elect a woman president? And referring to multiple studies, well, the author argues that perception of female candidates still tends to vary widely from men, especially when they're in positions of power. The article also makes an important distinction. Believing a woman can be president of the United States is not the same as questioning whether she can get elected president, and concludes that regarding Sanders' alleged remarks, people aren't simply outraged that he could be wrong, they're worried that he might be right. It's an argument we can also find in Vox, another American newspaper, which asked how much sexism matters in politics. And looking at a recent survey, 74% of respondents said they were ready for a female president, yet only 33% thought their neighbor would be comfortable with the idea. For the author, this is a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, the idea that people won't vote for their preferred candidates because they don't think others will.
Okay, interesting way of looking at it. Let's stay in the US for this next story. This is the state of Virginia, just voted in favour of an equal rights constitutional amendment.
Well, it's a bit of a strange story. Both the Senate and the House voted yesterday to ratify the Equal Rights Amendments, which prevents gender-based discrimination. For an amendment to become law in the U.S., 3/4 of states must ratify it, meaning 38 out of 50, and Virginia was the 38th, so it's quite a significant ratification, but they missed the deadline by around 40 years. The amendment, as NPR tells us, was initially voted in 1972, and the deadline passed in 1982, which means now it's facing a very uncertain legal future. But I guess better late than never.
That's one way of looking at it as well. Talking of things happening in Virginia, it seems, because the governor there declaring also a state of emergency. What's that about?
Well, it's quite a worrying story, and we can see the details of it in this article by Vice News. Basically, Virginia authorities said they intercepted extremist rhetoric online and uncovered plans by armed militias to storm the Capitol during a gun rights rally set to take place next week. Now, authorities say this rhetoric is reminiscent of the one found before the Charlottesville rally in 2017, and they've decided to ban firearms for the rally, something which understandably has rubbed gun rights advocates the wrong way, as many saw them as an opportunity to flex their Second Amendment rights.
And we're going to end with something a little different. This is the latest NASA study on global warming. Contains, though, some bad news for the planet, doesn't it?
Bad news indeed. Scientists are saying that 2019 was the second hottest year on record, just behind 2016, and the past decade was the hottest in 150 years. Now, The Guardian has published an article taking a look in pictures at what this warmest decade looks like, and I've selected a few powerful photos. starting with a picture of huskies hauling a sled through melted ice in Greenland, something which is highly unusual there. Then moving on to this lonely street lamp sticking out of a flood at Paris, something you might remember from January 2018. And finishing with quite a shocking one, a street crossing in New Delhi, India, which is completely distorted after the asphalt melted under the heat.
Wow. Amazing pictures summing up that story for us. Laura, thanks very much. Laura Bestek with the papers on France 24.